everybody. How are you? Good afternoon.
Everybody awake after that chocolate dessert?
Yes,
It looked delicious.
It was. It did look delicious.
I wasn't here for it. I'm looking at it. There was one on the table. I'm going, nobody's going to eat that. I might dive in, but no, I didn't. But I got the tail end of your speaker for the lunch.
Wow. Well, hey, thanks for being with us this afternoon. We really appreciate you taking the time. And we're going to share a little bit about our just amazing initiative called Words to Give By. So we'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and with luck, some tips that you can take back and think about doing something like this for yourselves. And we'll be here to answer questions or whatever you might need. My name is Nancy Benben. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. This is Nancy Bauer. She's Executive Vice President at the WNPR and
Connecticut Public Broadcasting
here in the local area, and she'll introduce herself a little bit more detailed in a minute. But what I'd like to do first is start out by asking you a question, two questions actually. How many of you have ever offered an act of kindness or a helping hand or a shoulder to cry on or money lending?
Everybody.
Yeah,
Yay!
All right. How many of you have ever been the recipient of a helping hand? Ooh, those hands went up so much faster. Guess what? You are all philanthropists. You are all philanthropists. And the core goal that we had for Words to Give By, that we'll tell a little bit more in detail in a minute, but the core goal that we had at the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving was to help people recognize that they are a philanthropist, and there are philanthropists all around us. Nope. Love of people, love of humankind. Wow.
Yay!
Wow. It's the first time.
You get a CD.
Yeah. That's the first time I've ever asked that question. Someone has answered it correctly.
It's so you thought it was wrong.
But you know, in our world of community foundations, people often think of philanthropists as a little older, maybe white hair, whiter than mine, deep pockets, maybe a trust fund. Nope, that isn't a true philanthropist. And what we really wanted to do with this 90th year celebration is to help people better understand what philanthropy is and shine a light on the acts of generosity that are all around us all the time. So the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving is indeed 90 years old. We were started in 1925, believe it or not, by two bankers right here in the Hartford area. We serve Hartford and the 28 surrounding towns. Community foundations are place-based, so the money comes into the community and it goes out to the community. That's the basics. There are three legs of a community foundation stool: money in, money out, money invested. When we started out with a bequest of $1,000. Today, 90 years later, we have assets of $940 million. Our first grant was $962.37 to a library. We granted this past year $32.5 million. So we are among the oldest and largest community foundations that most people have never heard of. So part of our goal was also to raise some awareness around what we do and who we are and how folks can join us. One of my favorite quotes is from Aesop, who said, "No act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted." No act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. And that's really what we're talking about today. So that's a little bit about who we are and where this a little bit came from, and I'm going to turn it over to Nancy to share her thoughts as well.
Sure. Nancy Bauer. I run the Sales and Corporate Support Department at Connecticut Public Broadcasting. I've been there for quite a long time now. For those of you who don't know, we represent Connecticut Public Television, which is known as CPTV. CPTV Sports, which a lot of people don't know, it's our high school sports network, which has been around for about 5 years. Yay! CPTV for You, which is one of our digital channels, which is really dedicated to a variety of PBS programmings that we don't really have the room for on our main channel. And of course, WNPR, which is Connecticut Public Radio. We are a statewide network. We serve all of Connecticut. And CPTV is a little over 50 years old, and NPR is not too far behind it. So we are really proud of what we do. We have a commitment to the community, and we've been working with the wonderful folks at the Hartford Foundation, I think, for decades now. So it's been a really good working relationship that we've had with them, and they've been very good to us. And so I'm just so happy to be here, and I'm glad Erica had invited us today. So my job was to kind of talk to you about this project and the logistics and how it came to be and all this other stuff. And normally I'm really good at just kind of winging it, but I said to Jane, who worked on this project with me, I needed to write this down because I didn't want anybody to really miss out on anything, because this project was enormous. And so part of it was I wanted to be able to tell you guys that it's a great project. Collaborations are wonderful, as you just heard in the meeting that we were in earlier. But it takes a team, and it takes a team that trusts each other, a team that needs to kind of let down their guard and kind of sometimes let others take the front seat and the back seat, and you just have to be shifting who's driving and really appreciate the expertise in the room. Sometimes not everybody's happy, but at the end of the day, you know, I think what happens if you choose really good partners to collaborate with, it gets easier over time, and something really wonderful comes out of it. So I'm going to get in a little bit to logistics here. So
Logistics is next slide.
pardon?
Not
Oh,
yet.
not yet?
Not
Oh.
yet.
Well, I was moving. So the goals and objectives, and I've kind of weaved it in a little bit to the logistics itself, but, you know, Nance had come to me, and she picked up the phone, and she says, you know, I really want to do something really terrific for our 90th anniversary celebration. And she said, we really like this StoryCorps concept. Everybody here familiar with StoryCorps and NPR? It's one of those driveway moments. You sit in your car and you're just glued to your seat, and for 2 minutes you listen to two people talk about something wonderful to each other, and it's just an amazing piece of work. And so we wanted to kind of replicate in some way, shape, or form. But StoryCorps can actually come out to your community and record stories, but there's no guarantee that this stuff will ever end up on air. And one of the things that we really wanted to do, along with the Hartford Foundation, is go out and touch people. Because we're in these big buildings, and you know, you can see the satellite dishes on our building as you drive down, and Nancy's got a building down here, what do they call it?
Around the corner, the candy cane building.
Candy cane building.
It's like a candy cane.
And again, kind of get out into the community and relate to the community in ways that we've never done before. And so, you know, when she called me up on the phone, I said, well, this is really interesting. You know, sometimes when the sun, the moon, and the stars align, and you go, bingo, got it. So seriously, honest to God, it couldn't have happened at a better time. Earlier that year, which was 2013, I believe.
Yeah,
14. Well, we started in 2013 with our strategic plan. We hired a company called IDEO. I don't know if any of you are familiar with them. They're actually started off as an industrial design company. Their main office is in New York City, but they have locations all over the country, all over the world, actually. And for those of you who don't know what industrial design is, it's, you know, they make things, they design things, that's their job. But one of the unique things that IDEO does is they really focus on the consumer experience and how that product will change somebody's life, how it feels in their hand, how that chair feels when you lean back on it. They actually invented the mouse, for those of you who don't know, that we all use today. So we met with them for, 13 intensive weeks, going back and forth. They did focus groups all around the state. And part of the reason why we as a media organization really needed to do this, for those of you, I'm not telling you anything you don't know because you live and breathe this every single day, but the media world landscape is changing, and it's changing at warp speed. Things that I thought, it'll take another couple years. Well, that's happening next month. And so we really needed to prepare ourselves for what we're going to do in the next 50 years moving forward, and how do we as a media company remain relevant in our community? And it was scary because it involves a lot of change. Because in a world where you can get news and content anytime, anywhere, any place, on any device you want on your time, that's scary for a media company. Now, we're a nonprofit organization as well. We rely on member support, we rely on corporate support, we get some foundation support. But still, you know, those funding streams, given the way people are consuming media, are really at risk for us. So we needed to really ramp up fast in how we were going to be able to deliver content and services to our community. And so IDEO did all these focus groups. They came back to us and they put together this really cool, what we call our playbook. And one of the things that they really stress in the playbook is what they call outpost. And what these outposts means is get your butt out of the building and out in the community. And they also told us that we're not the only ones that can be really good storytellers, that the community can be really good storytellers too. So if we just let down our guard and let them have a voice, something really powerful and magical could happen. Hence, Nancy Ben called me and I'm like, bingo! So sat down with my team.
And let me just interject, because this is perfect timing as well, because not only were we trying to celebrate our 90th anniversary, we had done some research that showed that we were seen as distant from the community. Our community foundation, what's up with that? We should not be distant from the community. So this was a way for us to also be in the community and help folks understand that we're not just up there, you know, writing grants and doing things. We are part of you as well. It's our home as well, and we want to hear your stories. So again, the partnership and the collaboration and the common goals that we both had, it really was stars aligning.
Yeah. So I think
So
we can.
yep. Let's see. Okay, so logistics.
Now I'm on the right
Now you're on the
slide.
logistics. There you go.
Hey, it's Friday, it's an afternoon, and
know,
I'm
right?
glad you're all here, because I'd be having a cocktail if I were you, but. You know, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Okay, so we sat down, went back to the team, first I met with Nancy's team and collaborated with what they wanted to do, and then kind of shared with her team what we wanted to do, and we kind of came back with a plan. It was originally called, I think, Connecticut Storytellers, but
Yep.
then we kind of morphed it as we went along. But so now we get the green light. We're going to proceed ahead with this project. Now the hard part begins. How do we plan for this enormous undertaking? How do we collect 100 to 175 stories, 15 different sites over a 5-week period? Oh my God. And we
In the winter.
In the winter. Started planning for this in November and wanted to start recording in March. Oh my God. And I have to admit, when Nancy told me we got the green light to move ahead with this project, I was elated. I mean, she didn't hear me when I got off the phone, but I'm just in my car yelling because I was so excited. But then I sat back and I said, I am scared to death, because it was so important for both organizations that we do this and we do this well. And I knew, and I know you all struggle with this, you know, every day we're at it with the resource, you know, nonprofits, we're all struggling with resources to get our jobs done. We always need more, we always need more. And this project was enormous. And so I said to my boss, I said, we really need to hire a team to come in here and assist us with this project, because I need their sole focus for a good 6 to 9 months to be this project. And so each person had varying degrees in terms of where they came into the mix of in and out over the 6 to 9 month period, but we had some steady eddies throughout that.
Right. So we had this great combination of teams where we worked so closely with Nancy's team, and our teams were just absolutely hand in glove. We were pretty much joined at the hip for 6 months. And to try to put this all together in one fell swoop was a challenge to say the least. And yet, we all went into this with great good humor. We went into it knowing there are going to be some mistakes. We went into it knowing we'll probably piss each other off at some point or another. We went into it with a ginormous work plan, and we went into it knowing that we don't really know what we're doing. So we're just going to kind of figure this out as we go, except that we did know what we were doing in some important pockets. We know how to tell, we know how to solicit stories, we know how to pull stories together. So reaching out to the community, how we did all of this and how we all came together was just an enormous team approach, because you cannot do it together
can't do it alone.
at once.
You
So
can't.
we started with, I think, 25 possible sites. Again, wanted to be in the community, so we chose potential grantees that might be the right site. Nance and her team spent hours at each of these sites trying to figure out what were the right ones. I mean, for those of you who are, into audio and video, it has to be just the right sound. And I mean, but it was on, this is where their challenge came to, because we said we want it to be throughout our region. 15 locations throughout our region. Got to touch most of I guess we can't do 29, huh? 29 towns, and they're looking at me like, no. So we winnowed it down to 15.
Yeah.
But their folks really spent a lot of time figuring that out.
So what we ended up doing is, this is where I need my notes because I didn't want to forget. We hired a project manager, a design marketing specialist, an event coordinator, a photographer, a production team, which included a producer and an AP. We engaged our audience care team, which is our new word for them, but they used to be the membership department. They deal with our members with, I couldn't get nature on at 8 o'clock on, Wednesday night. But, they also assist in taking pledge and assisting our members, answering viewer questions. It was really kind of the first time, too, that it was an interdepartmental effort on our part as well as HFPG's part. We worked hand in hand with them. The audience care team fielded calls. They scheduled the appointments for the participants. They answered questions for folks about, well, what is it like? We actually, because that was one of the challenges for us, is we want you to come and share your story of everyday generosity. And people saying, I don't really know what they want from me. And so it wasn't originally in the plan, but what we decided to do was create a 1-minute TV spot with Katiana, who works for the HFPG, kind of giving a sample of what a storytelling session was like, and then kind of talking about what that experience is. And we actually posted that on the website to give viewers, and we ran it on CPTV as well, and through other channels.
And on our website.
Yep.
We had a team internally as well. We had a whole group of people who were involved in our 90th anniversary, so they were very deeply involved in this team. And we created packets for everyone to use to go out and talk about this, because it did take some explanation. So we gave board packets with talking points. We of course had the television ad. We had a whole bunch of radio on WNPR. We also created radio and print ads that would reach a broad audience. It was important to us that we drew in and engaged all parts of our community. So we made sure that we bought airtime and space on the hyper-local sites, both digital, print, radio. So we were able to make sure that we reached a lot of ethnic groups as well. And it worked. We had people from everywhere coming in and telling their stories. But it did take a little bit of extra marketing. You can see up here how it also all blends together. We are all marketing folks. You all know how important it is that everything worked together. This was part of Nancy's team, where they had someone come in and work with us on graphic design, and we also created an entire website. The personal ask made all the difference in the world. The customer care folks were wonderful at explaining what this was, but people were a little scared. What do you mean you want me to come in and spend 20 minutes talking about a story and an act of generosity? No way, I'm not going to do that. And so, we coerced family, friends, people, 2 senators. We had 2 senators who came in and told their stories as well.
Right.
So
It's good PR for them, too.
it didn't hurt, but they also knew that their stories were not necessarily to be chosen. Again, we had over 170 storytellers. We edited 50.
We edited 50, and then 29 ended up airing on NPR, which represents the 29 cities and towns that HFPG serves. The others ended up airing on the website, or you can go play them on the website.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
But
go
I'm just
ahead.
curious, so what was the incentive for them to do it?
well, and I'm going to kind of get to that because we actually did a survey, and we had asked them a series of questions about why they wanted to do that. So I'll kind of get to that a little bit later on. I kind of just want to finish up kind of going through the logistics portions of it. But when people came in, they looked a little scared, I think. And our producer, Jay, was just fantastic. He's just so warm and approachable and just puts everybody at ease. And their faces when they came out of their recording session, it was like, it was such a wonderful experience. When you look at the survey results, close to 90% or more of the folks just really had a wonderful, wonderful time there. One of the things that we did, because we wanted to let the folks know that we really, really appreciated them taking the time out of their day to come and share their story with us. We had a little book that they can write after they were done telling their story. It was a Share a Story book, and they could just write about their experience. And then we had, I don't know, see these little signs there? So everybody got a photograph by our photographer, and they just, talked about little everyday generosity, little quotes and things, that were important to them about the story they shared with us. Those were used on social media. We gave everybody a Words to Give By mug, and everybody got a little flash drive that said Words to Give By on it, and it was their entire story unedited that they got to take home with them. Because, we knew that some folks wouldn't have their story in NPR, but we didn't want them to think they're unimportant. If I had my way, all 170 would run. But, that really wasn't feasible. And sometimes it's tough, too, from a producer's standpoint, and some of you folks in the room will understand. Somebody may have a really great story, but it's impossible to edit it down to, a 2-minute segment that makes sense. And so that was really Jay's challenge. And one of the things we also, and it was important to the Hartford Foundation, is we could get diverse voices. It was really, really important for us to get diverse voices. And that was also a challenge as well. But I think in the end, when we looked at the data, the participants that came in really closely matched the market statistics of our area, and we felt pretty good about that.
Yep. So let me just share quickly, what was the process? A process, if you wanted to be a storyteller, what did you have to do? Well, first you had to hear about it. And I talked a little bit about the wide range of marketing and marketing communication that we use to get the word out about come and tell your story. You could call, or you could click, or you could just contact one of us by email. If you were interested in telling a story, you had to choose a location, and then you had to choose a basic block of time. You also had to fill out a quick survey that said, give all the basics of who you were and just a snippet of your story. Once that happened, one of the producers would call this person back in preparation for their storytelling and just chat with them a little bit, get them comfortable, get to know them a little bit. You came to your location, you hung out for a little while, we were doing origami and playing games. You wrote cards that we then also sent to vets. You went into one of these lovely booths and you told your story in about 20 minutes. And it was an amazing experience for so many people. And I did it not only because I wanted to tell a story, but because I wanted to be able to talk about the experience. And people, as Nancy said, people did come out moved, absolutely moved. Sometimes in tears, sometimes laughing, but they all were really changed by the experience. And they got to take home their full story in a mug and all sorts of fun things. But so the incentive was simply the desire to tell this story. Some people used them afterwards to share this story with someone who had never heard that story before, or they used it in their own social media. So it was just a wide variety, but it really was, the call to action was just simply come tell your story. So that was kind of the flow of the day.
And one of the things that we found, we struggled in the beginning because getting to people to sign up in the sites originally, the first sites, first couple of weeks of the recording sessions, some of it was, getting the word out. We began to understand as we went through it the importance of that personal ask. It's
Yeah.
like getting on the phone and encourage our friends and people we knew, like, come out and do this, or encourage your friend to come out and do this. And then we found as we started going through each consecutive week, we started filling up.
Yeah.
And we actually, I don't want to say had to turn some folks away, but we had to cut it off. And that was a good sign, because we got into our rhythm, so it took a while. So we were getting a little discouraged, but again, just have a team that's really willing to pick up the phone and call and encourage your friends and their friends. And then I think what happened is that people who had that experience in the early onset about sharing their story told their friends, hey, this was really cool. We had a really good time. You should go do this too. And I really believe that's what happened, that encouraged folks to come to the latter part of the recording site sessions.
Mm-hmm.
If I could just say one thing, and then, that's a good question. I think at the end, what would be nice is if there are people in the room who could share some examples if they have pursued storytelling collaborations in their own community.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of underlining incentives that you can take out of it, like increasing your visibility as an organization, you're building community among your partners, you're just engaging the community, right? So I think there's a lot of stuff that you get out of it that's
Yep.
not
Yep.
like
Yeah.
tangible
Yeah.
per se, but it's like added value. Right? So I
Exactly.
think maybe at the end we could open it up.
Yeah, one reason was, again, as I said, we wanted to be out into the community. We wanted people to see us and be more visible and see that we're approachable and,
Absolutely.
And just this morning, I had someone come up to me and say, I was in an event this morning, and they said, I don't know what y'all are doing over there, but I'm seeing you people everywhere.
Right.
I'm like,
Just what you wanted to
It's
hear.
kind of like our
Um,
field too. I mean, it's always
yeah.
like, how do you stay relevant? And
Yes.
this is exactly how you stay relevant.
Yeah.
exactly.
And I'll
Did
tell you
set
from,
the video?
pardon?
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to share one thing
Yeah.
from my perspective, because, she's in the sales and corporate support department. There's always that news, separation of church and state. The content folks are separate from the sales folks, and some of you here, I think, know what I mean. And, it was hard for our content folks, I have to admit, in the beginning, because, they're the experts. They went to journalism school. They're the producers. And to give up that control was extremely difficult for them. But I have to tell you, we embraced and engaged them in the process just as much to bring them on board. And it's so funny, our news director, he just came around. He loves this project. He loves this project more than anything. So our hope is to replicate it as we move forward. But it brought down a lot of silos in our building. It really did, because I think it was the first time that we all worked together in this very unique way. And I think from my perspective, working with Nancy and her team, which were just a wonderful group, really and truly, taught me some lessons after 30 years in collaboration, because this took it to another level, I have to tell you.
Sure did.
But at the end of the day, there was just, our baby was born, as we call it.
Oh my God,
Our baby is a toddler now.
Yes.
But,
Moving into the terrible twos.
but really and truly, just to see this thing grow, and I have to tell you, it's just the people that we met and the stories that we heard, because every week as we would roll out stories for Nancy and her team to review, and they'd have to pick the ones that they wanted to air, you can tell them, it was really hard to pick. It was really hard to pick. The stories were so good and so moving and so touching. And the reason why, before, I know we'll get to the video here, the behind the scenes, but it was always my thought, not only for both organizations to be more approachable, and to engage people that maybe never watched our station or listened to our station or, ever engaged with Hartford Foundation. I think they see us differently now.
Yeah.
That is my great hope, and I do believe that. Some of the survey results actually attest to that. But the main reason why people came out is they wanted to share their story or they wanted to thank someone.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me gave me great hope in spite of all the crazy stuff that's going on in this world now. And I said this to Nancy in the beginning, what I always wanted people to remember, and part of the reason why we did the project, is when you do something nice for somebody else, or you give of yourself to others, you get that really good warm feeling inside. And our hope was when people hear these stories, they remember that feeling that they had. So then it becomes part of their DNA, that giving back to the community and volunteering is something that we all should be doing. And so if we accomplish that along with the other things, then I think we've done a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, definitely. It was a gift to be able to work at an organization where the ROI on this was sending out good energy into the world. I mean, I'm a recovering corporate type, so to be able to have the privilege of being able to say, we did this for the good of the community, period. To send good and generous sense out there so that it can be continued.
I like
So-
that, the recovering corporate.
Yes. Still standing. But go ahead and run the, we also, do you want to set this up quickly?
Yeah,
Because there's a reason we did this.
But there's a reason why we did this. We have a veterans vocational training program in our facility. Believe it or not, we're one of the few public broadcast. We actually have a high school and a veterans training program in our facility on our 4th and 5th floor. As many of you know, public broadcasting got its roots in education, and we kind of wanted to get back to doing that. So the senior class of the Journalism and Media Academy in Hartford actually come and spend their day in our facility learning digital media arts, project management, you name it. They work hand in hand with our folks. We're all mentors to these folks. And then we incorporated veterans program in there. So it's called the Institute for Advanced Media Studies, where we serve about 50 veterans a year who come in and learn digital media arts. The gentleman who runs the program is actually an Afghanistan war veteran himself, and one of the reasons why we chose him is because, you know, a lot of these vets can go to community college or UConn or wherever, but when Mike, who runs the program, is extremely sensitive to the issues that these veterans have in learning, whether it's PTSD or other issues that they're dealing with in terms of, you know, reacclimating themselves after being at war for such a long time. And so Mike kind of makes a lot of it up as he goes along in terms of, okay, here is the curriculum, and here's the syllabus that we have for the program, but he can work one-on-one with a lot of these vets and intervene and get them the resources they need. So Hartford Foundation actually provided us several years back with some funding to get our Veterans Vocational Training Program off the ground. And so we kind of wanted to present at the 90th anniversary celebration, which was last week, like a behind-the-scenes video of what this Words to Give By project was all about. Well, who better to do it than the veterans? So they were on site, I think, for 5 days, recording behind the scenes. And so what Erica is going to show you is kind of the scope of the project, but I am so proud to say that these guys did such a fabulous job.
Really did, right?
This was
Big hit
yeah, it was a big hit last week. It really was, and these guys were so proud that their work was going to be shown at a big event like that. So we were thrilled.
Words to Give By is a project to connect with a really wide variety of folks going all across the towns that the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving has relationships with organizations in, to gather stories about giving and generosity and kindness. Marianne Figueroa is a woman who came and spoke with us at the Hillstead Museum with a friend of hers that she knows from working at an organization in Hartford that serves people who are either homeless or have a lot of needs. Miriam found this organization because she needed the services that they provided.
It was like 5 or 6 years ago when I started going there and volunteering. I used to go there because I was, like I said before, I was homeless. And then that's when I met Becky and the other ladies through all the years, and we have gotten close, you know, helping each other.
This program is really great, and I think that hopefully when people listen to it, it'll make a difference.
Meet Nick Sinia of East Hartford, the creator of the photo blog Humans of Hartford.
You know, if there was ever a greater message to all of this, it's that everybody has a story to tell and be heard. So I feel like it's making me a better person, and I'm also able to kind of give back to the community and help people that need it.
My mother was one of 8 children, and she had a number of sisters, including my Aunt Mary. She was an amazing woman. But the thing that was the most important about her for me was the kindness.
All of our lives have been affected by people being generous and kind to us. I've never worked on a project that is this all-encompassing or this large, interviewing and sitting down with people that this topic resonated with, being able to share those stories with our listening audience. I feel really good about what we have been able to do with this project.
Do you have a question?
No, I couldn't quite tell. Did you tell the storytellers that they were time limits?
No, they came in, I think we said, you know, you'll have about 20 minutes, half an hour, and that's usually about what it took. But we didn't, all of the stories, and we're going to share 3 of them in a minute or 2, all of them were edited to 2 minutes. To 2 minutes, yep. The editing happened later.
I see it was kind of set up in an open room. Were they telling the story to the producer?
Yes.
Yes.
So did the producer prompt in any way?
Yes.
Sort of said, yeah.
Yeah, and each setting was different. So that happened to be an open room. Other settings had more closed space, but every place we chose had a place for people to gather beforehand, and then they went in. And the way it was set up is, you know, I was sitting here and Jay was sitting there, and Dan, who was the associate producer, was doing his magic with the sound. And you do a sound check, and Jay would ask you an opening question really easy, and then he'd just ask you to tell your story. And every now and again, he'd interject with a question. He'd send you off into maybe a different direction, and it was just, you so quickly forgot that there was this gigantic microphone in front of you, and that there was all this weird equipment around you, and you're wearing these ear things, and it just became a story between 2 people. It was so relaxed. As Nancy said, Jay Holt, who was the lead producer on that, whose voice you heard, was just astoundingly good at helping people feel comfortable and do this.
Well, that's important. It's usually very difficult for people to get going.
Yes.
To get it started. Once it's started, they're into it.
Yeah.
You know what, it was funny too, I heard from a lot of people, they thought they were going in to tell one thing and ended up going off in another different direction, which was really wild.
Yeah.
And that's a good interviewer as well.
Yes.
I think there's an art to interview.
And Jay knew in advance kind of what they were talking about, because when we took the forms and got their personal information, we kind of just asked for like a quick summary of, you know, what they wanted to talk about. So he kind of knew the direction that they were going in, so that kind of guided some of his questions. But if you ask Jay, you know, he really wants them to tell their story. He didn't want to take control of it. He thought that was the best environment for people, and it made them feel relaxed, and I think the result speaks for itself.
Yeah. So it really was a very cool experience to be there. It was great for both of our organizations to be on the sites. We had board members come to different sites. We had a representative of the foundation at every single site, at every single session, so that we could greet people and say thank you as well. We had banners, we had plenty of food and plenty of drink, and it was just a really, really fun experience. And I wasn't joking about the origami. We were doing origami every now and again. One of the storytellers was a woman who she did bouquets that were made out of paper for those people, for taking things into hospitals and such that don't normally allow scented flowers. And so she created these bouquets, gorgeous, gorgeous bouquets that were mostly origami. And she was called the Origami Mommy because her daughter actually got her to start doing this. And so she was showing us how to make all of these flowers, and it was just a wonderful experience to be there. And you know, in front of you and on the screen now is a wonderful infographic that one of the team members did, because it was just it really does encapsulate that. Yes, no kidding, 3 snowstorms while we were doing this in March.
Oh, you got to tell about the lost power situation.
Oh my gosh.
This was the best one.
So who would have thunk that there would have been a situation where there would be a loss of power? but there was a really bad windstorm happening at the time, and the power went out in this site where we were. It just went out. No idea when it was going to come back up. There were still a couple of storytellers lining up. Texts were going back and forth, wild, crazy ideas. And one of the storytellers came in and said, well, wait a minute, my husband's got a generator. I'll call him, we'll bring him over. Husband came over with the generator, plugged everything in. The rest of the storytellers told theirs. That's awesome.
We had photos of him with the truck pulled in with the generator in the back.
That's the power of community.
And
That's right, exactly. The power of community, for sure.
And one of the things, you know, that you don't think of, because, you know, I'm not an audio engineer or producer, but, you know, when Jay and Lolly had gone out to select the sites, you know, audio and recording sites were critically important. He wanted to get good quality audio sound, but not perfect, because we understood we were going out to the community. You know, they had good parking, it was handicap accessible. I think one of the other things is, you know, we wanted to make sure that these locations wanted us there. We talked a lot about this in our debriefs that we had, because we had several debriefs after this project of what could we do better, what did we learn, which I think is something really critical to the success of any program and how you're going to change it or do something similar moving forward. But we wanted sites to help co-promote what we were doing and help recruit people to go out and spread it on their social media. And we also needed to understand that we were kind of invading their space for the day, because some of these sites were small and with very limited resources and people, and we were going in there, and you know, sometimes we were there for 12 hours during the day or on a weekend, and you know, we were taking away from, you know, their normal course of doing business or doing whatever it is that they do. But for the most part, it was great everywhere we went.
Everywhere
It really
was great.
was.
Everywhere was great. They were so welcoming us with open arms. But it was that was part of one of the learnings, and we'll go into what are some of the lessons learned in a minute or two. But one of it was you really have to cultivate that relationship of the site. It doesn't happen all by itself. And that's something that we want to do differently when we do this again, which we will.
Great.
What would you like to hear? Some stories? Got a couple ready to go. Take it away. Goodness, you're here.
My pleasure.
I don't know if you want to set this up at all. We'll just let them play.
Oh, this is the website, and
Yeah.
this is
I have a
And,
question.
yeah.
Did anybody tell the story, and then after they're done, think twice, and say, wait a minute, I don't think I want that story going out.
Me, Abdul Rahman Muhammad of Vernon.
The most kind thing that's ever been done to me in my entire life, just give it a little bit of history. I had kidney failure. So one day, you know, I was talking to my little sister, just fooling around, and I asked her, why don't you hook me up with one of your girlfriends? Or, you know, give me a kidney. And I was expecting her to hook me up with one of her girlfriends, and I was gonna get a date, you know. But she said, you know what? I will. I'll give you my kidney. So within 2 weeks, we were in the hospital and getting the kidney. I always feel like I had two lives. Before I had kidney failure, that was like one life, and in a lot of ways, I was a totally different person. You know, a lot more wild, less focused, all this kind of stuff. But after she gave me the kidney, I feel like I've been able to live out my true purpose in life. And so, imagine that somebody can give you a gift that allow you to become who you are. Before that, I was just a guy, and the whole time I wanted to be who I am now. And so, but it's just like you can't always connect the dots on stuff. You need help. By her giving me that kidney, what it did was it allowed me to become a man, a community leader, a person that is able to give back and want to give back and believe in myself, all because of one act, one thing that she did for me.
Muhammad is a social worker and is more known around Hartford as Dream Chaser #1, sitting behind the counter of the Ice Cream for a Dream ice cream truck. Words to Give By is brought to you each Wednesday by the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving and WNPR. Learn more at wordstogiveby.org.
That's a great story. Continue forward, next couple? Sure. You're 50.
Got another hour to go, we'll bring the drinks in.
Yeah, there we go.
In the mid-1950s, Patricia Kelly's parents bought a house on Hartford's Warren Street from a woman named Betsy Kaplan. They were one of the first black families in the neighborhood.
Well, on this one particular day, the neighbors were quizzing Mrs. Kaplan about why she didn't tell them that they were selling this property to my parents. And I was peeking from around the corner of the house, listening to this ruckus outside. And while I was standing there, I heard this psst, and I turned and I looked, and there was this man standing there. He was a white guy, and he said, "Little girl, you don't need to hear that. Come." And it was this raggedy fence between our properties, and he was standing next to this enormous horse. And he said, "Little girl, do you like the horse?" And I nodded my head, and he said, "Come." And I climbed through this raggedy wooden fence, and Mr. Fisher handed me a brush. And he said, "Let me show you how you use the brush." And it was a done deal. I fell in love with this big horse, and that became my life.
Patricia Kelly is the founder of Ebony Horsewomen, an organization which has been teaching Hartford youth to ride in the city's North End for 3 decades. Words to Give by is brought to you.
Brought to by.
Right, we know.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
No, but that's great if you add that to it, and that's.
Yeah, I mean, branding,
Branding,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Repetition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meet Diane Bailey of Granby.
More than 22 years ago, I was, I'd say, 9.5 months pregnant, well overdue, with a 2-year-old child, and so we were going to have the second addition to our family, and we knew this was the last weekend that we would be just a threesome for our family. And we had very little money. My husband was in grad school. I had quit my job for obvious reasons, and we went to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts because we knew that on Saturday mornings they didn't charge admission. It was one of their free programs. When we got there, they were charging admission, and it was about $20 per person, and at that time we had no money with a 2-year-old, and did we really want to stretch it and spend that much money on tickets, which we really didn't want to. And from out of nowhere, a woman showed up. She was in her probably mid-50s, and said, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to intrude, but I have children same age, same predicament in the Midwest, and I can never do anything nice for them." And handed us 2 tickets as admission. And then before we could even say thank you, she just disappeared, never to be seen again. And we had a beautiful day at the Museum of Fine Arts, and 36 hours later had my second son. And it's something that we have always just held in our heart of deep gratitude from this woman. Random acts of kindness that can make a huge impact on people's lives. And I'm certain that this woman has no idea what an impact it made on her life, and that the story still continues.
Words to Give by is brought to you each Wednesday by the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving and Donation.
So every Wednesday at 3:04, you can hear this before one of the most popular local shows on WNPR, which is the Faith Middleton show. So right before it runs. And so you always know it's going to be there at that time. I have my alarm set at 3 o'clock. I bring everybody in my office
She has
and we
listening
listen
parties.
to it. So we have listening parties. So it's one of those things that through consistency, it also continues to get the awareness out.
And there's a
And the name
promotional
out.
schedule built into this that drives people. I think we could do 10 spots a week.
Yep.
To tell people to tune in 3 or 4, so they become accustomed to it.
Yep, yeah. So we have some lessons learned, which of course is always the case. And I think Nancy and I will just, frickin' frack here. But one of the biggest lessons learned was to simplify. 15 sites, way too many. that was just bigger than we should have bitten off. But you know what? We didn't know. but also simplifying everything. We often gave people more than they needed in my department, in order to get prepared. We tried to make a big deal about it, but we probably didn't need to make as big of a deal about it as we wanted to. But the more that you can simplify, the more you can streamline, the better off that you'll be.
Yeah, I agree with Nancy. You know, easy to say now that you've been through the entire process, but we really needed to go through that.
Yeah.
I mean, we really did. And I think, you know, we're continuing this project into 2016, so we're thrilled to death. And we're going to take a lot of those lessons learned and move forward. Like, I think we're going to do 5 sites instead of 15. We're going to be at each of those sites 2 days. So this way, it allows for people in the area to get out there, but it doesn't have us running around like crazy. But it also can have us look back at the sites that we did go to and say, okay, all of them were great experiences, but from all the criteria that our producer had in terms of what makes a good site, because I asked him, you know, I need you to put your list together. What do you think of the 15 sites that we went to would be appropriate for us to go back to? So he came back with his list of criteria. But I think one of the things that we had really talked about, you know, when I was talking about the sites and whether we were welcome or not, and they all did welcome us, but really kind of working with those sites and how do we better strategize and work together to engage the community, because they're there. You know, whether it's a senior center in Glastonbury or a library or the American School for the Deaf, you know, they're entrenched in that community. How can they help us get that word out? Because as we said, the importance of the ask is critically important. The good thing about this project is we have a lot of samples to show people. So when we ask them to tell us their story, we've got 50 samples. So it's a little bit easier, I think, the second time around. But I still believe, and I think you do too, that the personal ask is going to still be a big part of it. There is going to be a promotional campaign, obviously, to begin this process. I think we're going to start 3rd week of January.
Yeah, we're going to start a little earlier. The other thing was to get the sites up sooner.
Yeah.
Because it was last year, this was one of those where are we going to be? Because people, that's the first thing they ask. Well, when and where? Oh, we didn't know that yet. So it made it really hard. It was a barrier that we didn't need.
Yeah.
That
we're asking them to tell their story, but we don't know where we're going to be in 3 weeks, you know?
Right.
And I'm sorry.
And we'll do the broad outreach again in marketing as well, so that we'll be reaching a very diverse audience is our goal. So we'll be reaching out, and it's a lot easier because we'll say remember. You know, we'll be changing the creative just a little bit, I think, but we're going to keep the common look, the common feel. Part of the reason why we were able to have this go forward is, hey, look, we just spent a year building this brand. Let's build on it.
Yeah.
We don't want to skip a year, because you know what that's like. People will forget. We'll be starting from scratch.
Absolutely.
So we wanted to continue it.
And I think the last piece of advice I'll offer, and I said this to Nancy when we were putting together, you know, this presentation for you folks. Choose your partners wisely. Seriously, I think that's critically important. I've done enough community partnerships in my job, and quite a few of them, both in my previous job and this one. The majority have gone extraordinarily well, but the ones that have gone bad, you know, because someone wants to control the ship. And if you're not willing to share and collaborate, it will fail. So it was easier for us, I think, because we've had a longer term relationship. And I also think a lot of it is because of Nancy's personality and my personality. And no, seriously, I mean, you just kind of, you kind of get to know the people that you work with. But I really suggest, you know, you spend a lot of time and a lot of thought into picking your partners. You may think that's a great idea, but it may horribly go wrong and may be a pure nightmare for all of you if it's not done the appropriate way.
Yep. And just be prepared to expect the unexpected. In the midst of this, my project manager got pregnant with triplets.
Well, it's a story.
Yeah, that was a story.
That was a story.
And she kept saying, "Oh, I'm coming back," and I'm like, "Nah, I don't think so." And she, you know, she was on bed rest for it anyway. Did not expect that. So we managed. We managed quite well.
And the seasons change, and Jay will tell you, because when they went to do the sites, like in the winter, but the birds are starting to come out and tweet in the morning and end of March, beginning of April. So when he was doing recordings, you know, you had birds chirping in the back and things of that sort. So just things you never even think of. That. So that's kind of our presentation for today. We hope you enjoyed it, and thank you all for coming, and we're opening up to questions.
Oh, excellent question. So the budget, I think, is, I could give you a number, but I don't think it's meaningful, and I'll tell you why. Everybody's market is different. Everybody's needs are different. It's just one of those things that is a market to market. We did fund this through a grant, so the vast majority of the expenses were funded through a grant. The external marketing part of it, beyond WNPR promotions, came out of my marketing budget. And so it's a question that's just, I think, impossible to answer. It's a market by market answer. Yeah.
But I'm asking for context because we're community access stations, and I hope one of the things that you learn as a foundation is that what we do in order to get this kind of quality and teach people and the content takes an investment of a considerable amount. And I'm suspecting this project probably is larger than some of our budgets.
It could be, and you have to also remember that this was a very special year for the Hartford Foundation. Sure. As part of our 90th anniversary, we got a little latitude in terms of the kinds of grants that we were able to do, and it is a blessing to be part of an organization that saw this as an important community benefit and was willing to invest in a grant to do this.
Can I just speak to that in terms of, this is scalable, because actually after we did the Words to Give By project, I knew this was going to happen. We love what you're doing. That's really a cool project. And so we did a project with Smilo Cancer Hospital at Yale New Haven called Survivor Stories. And it's people that are sharing their stories about cancer survivor and words of wisdom they can share with others. And so that was just 2 days of recordings. We recorded 8 people. It was very small, but it is scalable. So, you know, this was a massive year-long project, so you have to understand that. But it is scalable.
So another question? Yeah.
My question was along the same line, because I just, not really as much about finances, but about manpower.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the least amount of people that you could have to do a smaller version of this?
It's a great question. That's a great question.
Can I actually, I could answer to this a little bit. So I work in Somerville, Massachusetts, which I guess there's like 67,000 people. I guess when we were considered like a medium-sized center for full-time staff. Lots of hefty interns who are amazing, provide a lot of support, right? And that's always rotating out 3-month increments. I was inspired to do some similar storytelling stuff even prior to these folks here, to collect stories just about the community in Somerville, because there's a lot of development that's happening. I wanted to kind of preserve this really interesting cultural perspective of people who've been living there for so long. So I had set up a few different, so I'm the director of membership and outreach, so it's kind of, you know, it's within my responsibilities. So I sought out a handful of partners from the farmers markets to the local arts council, and to the Main Streets, if you have like a Main Streets kind of organization. So those are 3 key partners who all have their own like roots, right? And they all have their own events in the community that I knew I could solicit stories, right? By setting up just a simple booth. I brought out like a little bench, a DSLR camera, and I was literally a 1-person operation, right? So I also took it out on my own hours. I mean, I was working on the weekends, and you know, so you figure out like comp time or whatever it is depending on your station. And I collected, and these are videos, right? But I made them really short, and I asked specific questions that I knew would kind of incite certain responses. And I then had an intern who was designated to just really like working on editing those and trying to have a consistent brand, like intro, outro, music as you have, right? So there's a little bit of like, just like some consistency with it, and then uploading on YouTube. So in terms of like scalability, there's no funding, right? I mean, I was literally just like, I have an idea, and my boss was like, okay, cool, let's do it, which is kind of the atmosphere sometimes at our stations.
I am going to work with our current executive director to apply for some funding through the Massachusetts Cultural Council, which is a very well-funded cultural council. We're in a bubble in Massachusetts, I will acknowledge that. But there is opportunities for funding storytelling right now. It's unbelievable.
So popular.
And obviously my selfish underlining invitation for them to come is to also see the power of what we offer to the community, because we are collecting stories all of the time. It's a little bit more hodgepodge and not as cohesive. But there is so much opportunity that we are doing at our centers that I think if a question I could pose to you is, how would you see us as a partner? Like, what would we need to do as an organization for you to see it as a legitimate, valuable partnership so we could pursue stuff like this?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that you could do, and I think if any, I'm going to guess that every single one of you have a community foundation in your area. Boston Foundation is gigantic, but there are smaller community foundations all over the place. I would be happy to work with you, and I'm sure Nancy would be as well, to talk about how is it that you can best approach a community foundation in order to think about getting funding for something like this. We are happy to share our experiences.
That's great.
One of the beauties of community foundation world, as opposed to that corporate life that I used to live, is that sharing is welcomed and encouraged, and hey, it worked in your market, can I borrow that from my market? No question, of course you can. Let's help each other in this regard. Because I do think the whole notion of storytelling is so hot right now, and it's so engaging. Imagine this for a minute, that you proposed, we think it would be a great idea for you to have donors tell their stories. Right. How is it that they got involved in philanthropy or in giving? Let us help you do that. How can we partner with you in doing that?
Or develop like a really strong storytelling program that then you can pitch to have people come to you to be the production, right?
Yeah.
Hello, look at what we do. That's what we do. Like, we have all the knowledge and the resources. Like, we can make money also. Like,
But also look to the business community, guys.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
really and truly, you know, local businesses are a really great resource to go to. They may want to fund some of your projects they're doing. You know, getting out in events in the community is something they always want to be part of, and that makes them unique and different. So don't be afraid to go talk to these folks. You got to kind of learn how to sell too. The one bit of advice I will say, never approach it, this is what we want to do. Never use those words. It's like, how do we work together to create something great? If it's all about you, it's never going to work. Right. It really is about the collaboration and wanting to do something good and put your own needs aside. And I'll just elaborate a little bit about, you know, what it takes to get it done. You know, our roles are changing, let's be honest, in the media business. You may need to reorganize the way you are currently doing business, just as we are. I mean, people who were doing one thing for 20 years at our company are now doing something different because our strategic plan dictates that that's the way that we need to go. And so a lot of it is trial and error, and will it work? But, you know, understand that you may have to learn new things as well, and just be open to that. So, you know, I was talking, the gal was talking about, you know, a director of engagement. You betcha. That's a real critical role in the media landscape moving forward, and something that I would push for. Or you can even have volunteers in your community who are passionate about this help you in that process. So just bring some advocates who are really supportive of what you do.
So I'm curious as to, like, how, you know, like, we're talking about we need money to do this. So what was the biggest piece of you know, thing that you did that needed a lot of money? Was it the branding? Was it the outreach? Was
everything?
I think it was probably, well, the production elements were high. I mean, remember, they were, in effect, picking up a recording studio and bringing it to 15 different places. So the time of that, and then I would imagine the time of editing.
Yeah, he
was
edited
also
from end of April, beginning of April, and he just finished in July of editing the 50 stories.
So, Erica, what you're saying is basically I mean, we are the production people.
Yeah.
So that would be our cost.
I think outreach, honestly,
Right.
all right, so I'm also
Right.
a super energetic person, right? And I could probably scale down my energy a little bit from time to time. But I'm excited. I'm like, yeah, storytelling. So if I can, and it's a selfish thing because I'm like blending my personal interests with professional, which is great that I could do that. But it would be great to have help. I seek out volunteers, right? But they're not always dependable to help in like the production side. There is a lot of like person power going into the pre-production, which is like setting up the events, a lot of event coordination, a lot of like outreach, promotions, putting it out just so people know, hey, we're here, come share your story, we'll collect it, you'll be on TV and online, it's a shareable link. It's a lot of work. I mean, I would see, in terms of putting value to the time that you're spending alone in like promotions and outreach, that is like an expense, but I'm able to do it because it's part of my like job description, right? And it's helping to raise visibility of Somerville Community Access Television and being relevant and all these other things. So,
and that's something you have internally, and that's something that you have already access to. So
and you're doing a regional. This is like a regional thing. This is like one city, right? So it is very like you're going from macro to like.
So I guess if we were to approach like either our community foundation or a business that wants to be helpful in the community, I guess it would be nice to have some direction on like, because you've done it, like what should I be putting on the piece of paper, like how much, like how to break it out.
I wouldn't start with how much.
Cost other than the
Seriously, I wouldn't start with how much. When I go on a call, we never talk about money. Seriously, we never do. We talk about what we would like to do with this partner. How can we engage and work together? Because I'm a firm believer, if you come up with great ideas, magic happens. Seriously, not all the time, but it really does. And it doesn't have to be as grand as this project. This was a very big project. Seriously. You can start off small and have small successes and show people, hey, this is what we've done. And then slowly increase it. And you know a magical thing that happens, this project, it was funded by a grant, but other projects I've done, we had an initiative called Connecting Our Communities, where it's very similar. We work with community partners, and they're the experts in content, but we're the experts in producing media, and how do we work together. But it's really funny when you sit in this room and you have this brainstorming session with folks, and then people kind of begin to really rally and get behind it because they're really excited about the idea. Not how much it's going to cost, but really excited about the idea. What ends up happening, people go out and help you. Well, I'm going to connect you with this person, and he may have funding for this. And I've seen it happen time and time again. If you bring the right people in the room that have a shared mission and vision and really care about what you want to grow and do together, I just think the rest kind of just comes naturally, but it never starts with the money. It never starts with the money.
I think choosing your partners wisely is a very important thing. And I feel like in our field, we're constantly giving, right? And sometimes it's like all so much giving, and then you're like, well, you're spread thin. I think as being a little more strategic about what are these projects and how can you get more return on investment. And it's tough, because we want to be such a provider. But Cora Trowbridge from Brattleboro, she was talking in an earlier session this morning about they had to really reinvent themselves a bit in terms of like different tracks of people getting involved with them. So people come in and it's like, you want to be an individual member producing your own stuff? Great, here's this track. You want us to produce stuff for you and we're going to be making some money? Awesome, this is this track. So it's kind of like thinking like, what are your needs as an organization? But one thing I'll say is the Somerville Arts Council, they're always doing very strange, bizarro, like out-of-the-box events and programs, so I try to capitalize off of that as well. And they bought a bus and converted it into this like mobile bus that is able to be programmed by anybody in the community. You just have to write kind of like a proposal, and they'll approve it. So I proposed that when they have their bus set up at different events, that we could provide some storytelling on the bus. So what I did was after the first session that I collected stories, I made like a little screening space inside the bus. So I put up a few chairs and just had like an iMac, and I had the videos that were collected at the previous event on loop. And then I was outside with like a sign. I think I like hand drew it or had a friend do it because she has way better artistic skills drawing. And it was like, come share your stories with Scat TV. And I think people in terms of like incentives, right? They're like, cool, I want to be on TV, which is still like a cool factor. It is. And they have a nice video that they're able to share around. But it's kind of just like looking at like what exists already and how can you tap into that? Because if you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and there's already such like solid community events that are happening, even if it's like once or twice a year, like, you know, have a table, like put out information about your organization. Because even though you think that people know you because you've been around for 30 plus years, guess what? Communities change, people rotate out, and it's also nice to let people know like what you are up to as an organization, like the new things that you're doing, and soliciting feedback is always great about like how you can improve, right? So, just some food for thought.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, is anybody doing storytelling in their community?
You've got to be here.
Tom, who's also part of my team.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
But I've also done stuff like this before, working here, and I have a MacBook Pro, and I have 2 microphones that I think were $90 each. And while this stuff maybe isn't quite as great as this, it can sound really good with the right software. I use all free software. I have a $250 video camera that we use to make pretty good stuff. The most popular video the Hartford Foundation has on our YouTube page, it's not one of the ones where we hired an expensive freelancer. It's one that we able to flip camera.
Yep.
So I think that you can scale this down. You just need somebody who is willing to learn the technology and
Yeah, and we have the resources is the thing. Like we all have really nice cameras. Even invite people into the studio, and it doesn't have to be video. Just extract the audio, and we have the technology. We have bomb technology, and we need to promote that and let people know that we are here, and for fine folks like this that we are here, and consider us as a station for a landmark for maybe collecting stories.
For sure.
So I think it's all about just kind of like bridging this. Because everybody's doing so many different things that are oftentimes very like parallel, and it's like, why aren't we talking to each other more?
Yes.
Why aren't we having like these collaborations that would only benefit everybody? Assuming that it's, you're not putting more in than you're going to get. There's always, like you're saying, debriefing and what worked, what didn't work, but.
Yeah. So in Western Massachusetts, the local cable access stations used to have a series where they would host meetings at each of the different access stations so that teams from the others could go and see what's going on and hear some of the stories that are happening in other places. And we need to do more of that. Because, it's really positive.
Does the cable company let you use some of their ad inventory to promote the stuff that you do?
Nope.
Why not?
I wish I had answers, but all I know is nope.
Have you asked?
That's a good question.
Yes, we get reimbursed for some of our advertising.
Because they have
not the whole thing.
an enormous amount of
I know.
inventory.
And
if
that's
it's
the
in
disconnect.
a public service kind of message, I'm sure if you position it the right way, they might be able to do it for you. It's just, they have so many channels. There's so much space.
Well, and some of the old-fashioned works too. Posters made a difference.
Sure.
Postcards made a difference. It was just some of the old-fashioned stuff that we don't think about anymore.
And social media is free.
Yeah.
Push the stuff out. That's where making those connections in the community to help you do what you do is so critically important. Like we were at a business expo yesterday in New Haven, and one of our shows, Faith Middleton, has just launched Just Going All Food. We signed up like 150 people to get likes on our Facebook page. So we said, okay, you can have a mug if you like our, but we all had fun. We took pictures of people and we said, oh, join the party. And it was just a really fun way of engaging the community. And it's like, then we picked up 250 overnight just from those circle of friends passing it out. But it was just spending a day having fun, asking people to join in. So just simple stuff like that. Just ask. Some people are just so afraid to ask. If he's like, because sometimes my son, when he needs resources for school, I said, you ask the teacher? No. Why not? Because he's afraid. Don't be afraid to ask. All they can say is no.
Right. Unfortunately, navigating corporate media can be a little bit trickier than I'll speak collectively, but in terms of policy stuff, there's a group in Massachusetts at least called Mass Access, and they're trying to really, and you can speak and let me know if I'm screwing this up, but They're trying to advocate for policy just so we will be on the program guide. So it doesn't say public access TV all the time. Because we do have great content. And why are we at a disadvantage? And these are like minute details, but big struggles. And it would be huge for us to be acknowledged and legitimized because we are such an entity in the community. Like, why is it like that?
Well, what if you build it and structure it in such a way that, okay, you're going to take on homelessness in your community, and you can do a series of stories about homelessness, and there's all these tentacles to it. And if you went with a nice structured plan and went to the GM of your, your cable system and said, hey, this is what we want to do, I don't know. I think it'd be really hard to say no. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive, but I think, sometimes it's, they have a lot of inventory. I mean, they've even helped us out in some cases. We've done public service campaigns and
it's something we should, I don't know the current asks of what has happened. There's been people who've worked in this field for a lot longer than I'm only 6.5 years in. There's people who've been in the field for 20 plus years who I totally respect and value, and but it's like, what the hell is going on? Why aren't we being as appreciated? So this is a very inspiring panel because we wanted, I wanted just everybody to kind of leave, recognizing you do have the resources also at your own facility, and what they did is, yes, a larger scale project, but we can do that at our places, and maybe we can get more information from these ladies later on about more of the details, but yeah. Let's give a round of applause.
And I do have a few of all of the edited stories, 50 edited stories if you're interested. I've got a few, first come, first serve. Right. Or you can just go to the website, listen to them all.
Have a lovely weekend all.
Hurry.